It should be.
That seems good.
Hello, everybody here and out there. Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. Super excited to celebrate 3 new books of poetry. Those are The Unnumbered Anniversaries by Kurt Olsson, Preferred Internal Landscape by Winsor Wood, and Blade Work by Lana Turner. Highly recommend all 3. So thanks to the 3 of you for celebrating those books with us. To the rest of you, they're for sale out there, and collect them all. And then I just have a couple of announcements, and then we'll get right into it. But I do want to mention a couple things coming up. Well, one thing already up is this recently installed show. Think Something Revolutionary, Think Change, works by Evelyn Patricia Terry, which will be up until early February. So, I mean, enjoy it now, but come back also when this space is just a gallery, and sort of take it in that way too. It's pretty wonderful work. So. And thanks to Patricia Terry. And then I'll mention one event, but I'll also point you in the direction of our newsletter, and it's 2025, I think, is our website too. It's a thing that exists. But if you want one of these, I recommend you pick one up. But one event well worth mentioning is December 6th at 2 p.m. We're going to be hosting Ed Roberson, Matthew Gulish, and Patrick Morrissey for a reading and conversation here. So highly recommend. And then further down the line, do come see us do it our poetry marathon end of January at St. Kate, the Arts Hotel downtown. More information about how to do that is online. Okay, so here we go with the poetry. Kicking things off is Emma Winsor Wood, who's the author of Preferred Internal Landscape, just out from Ornithopter, and The Real World from Blaze Vox. Her writing has appeared in The Drift, the American Poetry Review. I wonder if I say this or just say the letters or pronounce this. Either way sounds fun. Zizva. Z-Y-Z-Z-Y-V-A. Okay. Fence, Colorado Review, and elsewhere. That's fun. Originally from New York City, but most at home in California. She is currently a professor of English at Xavier University in Cincinnati. In Preferred Internal Landscape, Wood tells us, quote, "I write poems for impatient people, and there is a quietly frenetic quality to the dizzying turns of thought and line that draw out latticed and layered interconnections, landscapes on landscapes." Quote, "I notice a landscape of spiderwebs on the actual landscape, glowing, spectral, wet in the fog. Or, for instance, in a time-lapse of what feels like movement through millennia in just a few lines, a superimposed succession of firsts. Quote, at first the room was empty, at first there was no room, just the idea of one. At first there were only trees and the animals that lived in them. At first there was only weather, later asphalt, fences, roofs. Yet these poems reward patience as well, an understanding of how these turns and sudden movements through time and space and thought offer a new kind of engagement and being. Small turns that seem to open up whole worlds, as Eliza Gabbert writes, quote, "Preferred Internal Landscape enacts the slight perspective shift that changes everything. The poet thought." Please welcome Emma Winsor Wood.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Mink, and thank you all for being here, and thanks for having us, and thanks Kurt and Lily for reading with me. I'm always a little awkward with the mic. Okay. So I'm going to read a few poems from this book, and I'll read a few new poems also. I'll start with a poem. I grew up in New York City, as said in my bio, and moved to Santa Cruz, California, without ever having been there, moved there to live. and was just totally terrified by the world and the landscape that I found myself in. And we were living in the mountains up from the town, so it was very wild, with real danger. And this book came partly out of that, and especially this poem, which Mike quoted. Manifest Destiny. At first the room was empty. At first there was no room, just the idea of one. At first there were only trees and the animals that lived in them. At first there was only weather, later asphalt, fences, roofs. At first the room was far-fetched, then right here, perfect, then prefab, blueprint, then footprint. First there was the form, later the content. First, no one lived here, then we did. At first there were 2 red curtains, then 6. Too much room, then not quite enough. At first the landscape seemed full of hope, then despair. At first the dogs stayed close, later they roamed. The first time I slept alone in the room, I couldn't. The first time I tried to make a fire, I failed. The first time I hiked, I startled at every step. The second time, I brought a knife. At first, it was just us. Then there were marveling guests. Look at all the space you have. Then the mailman knocked daily, then the dogs barked and kept barking. Other dogs barked back. In the distance, the faint beeping of a truck backing up. And this is called Freedom of Speech. I was saying last night we were reading that this is my second book, but it's actually it's my first book. It's the book that I wrote first and was submitting, and my second book that I wrote chronologically, just happened to be picked up first. And so I think, like a lot of first books, I'm sort of thinking a lot, or maybe books in general, I'm thinking a lot about what poetry is in these poems, and what kind of poetry I want to write or am allowed to write. Freedom of speech. All I want to do is write confessional poems, but the world's not going in that direction anymore. I spoke to a man on the phone about my potential as a voiceover artist, and he said I had the pipes, but not the passion. Call back in a few months, he said. I've got a nasally lady voice, quick as Microsoft's brown fox. What? My husband always asks. Never mind, I say. Never mind? I want to speak more than I want to be understood. I want to be understood more than I want to die. Death is so quiet. Knock it off with all that singing, the famous poet tells her husband, also a famous poet. The world's not going in that direction anymore. The cemetery sprinklers are on despite the drought, because that grass is people. That grass is DNA. We're really tired of the click, shut, closed ending after the 20th century, the poet says. Later in the cemetery, I repeat this to my husband on the phone, but he doesn't hear me. What? He asks. Never mind, I say. I want to hear what you said, he says. All I want to do is write love poems, but the world's not going in that direction anymore. My voice is so loud, it carries. Shh, my conservative ex-boyfriend said whenever we argued about politics in bed. Shh, Mommy says at the Met in the car on the N train to 34th Street. Shh. I want to be heard more than I want to be understood. What, you ask? Never mind. And another thing I was thinking a lot about with this book was free will and whether I had any in any of the decisions I was making, and I decided at the time that I did not. There are a few poems kind of about that, and this is called Labor. It's also sort of, relevant in the current AI moment. I want to write a film script, but instead I write a poem in the form of a script. Some days I put go outside on my to-do list. There's an algorithm that can translate images, turn a Monet into a Van Gogh, a horse into a zebra, summer into winter. I've been working on a translation for 2 years, but I've spent very little of that time actually working on it. I always have other work I need to complete before I can work on the work I'd like to be working on. The problem isn't my emails, F said. The problem is my work. What I really need to do is eliminate my work so I can write emails all the time. I have a watch that reminds me to breathe. Does an algorithm know labor? I'm not rich, I tell myself, because I hate to be told what to do. I'm individualistic because I'm a product of Reagan, Bush, Trump. I'm unhappy because it's winter and I don't own a solar simulator. We're all waking up and waking up and waking up ad nauseum. Another poet once told me to never use we in a poem, a symptom of the loss of the collective, of collective loss. We're in bed, it's morning, vacation. We're waking up anew, we're awake. We reach for the script, forgetting there is none. And the book has a lot of these prose poems that I've been reading, basically prose poems. And then it has 2 sequences of shorter poems, and I'm gonna read an excerpt from one of these longer sequences, not the whole thing. It's called Realistic Life. And I read it at a reading a few weeks ago, and someone came up to me and was talking after, and was sort of thought I had gotten divorced based on this poem. It's like, if you're still married, it's like, oh, okay. So that's my preface on it. He said, I said, he said. He moved into the sun to sneeze. I cleaned the windows from the inside, pausing for the guttural hum, a helicopter at this hour. The white dowel that twists open the white blinds is swinging back and forth. A cold current enters. I moved it, didn't I? That dream again with my ex, I can't quite remember. I was half-daughter and loved him accordingly. Electronic wind chimes. Wake up, and the dogs ready for their routine. The kettle doesn't hold enough for us both. In the morning, I boil just enough for myself, a stray grain burning into ash. The other side of the fence is elsewhere. Come back. Wading into a low, muddy stream, a fawn leapt onto the path in front just like that, froth on her mouth. Sun's out on a cold day, the park bereft of, free of, and she and me alone in it. Small between trees, we run on uneven ground. Shrubs scrape my shins, torso bare in the heat, thud of planks suspended. My dog unleashed, briefly, wild. I nearly stepped on a bird. It flew upward, white rustle, and away. Behind me, a pickup truck brakes with a scream. No, I did. The grass in our yard, so wet mornings, it's as if it rained in the last dark. Unreal. An imposter. It grows much faster. And I'll read two short poems and then read some new ones. Perspective. Photos of a successful young poet appear in my feed. For an instant, I feel a familiar heat rising. Then I recall that for a long time, he was dying, and now he's dead. Judgment call. In the book I'm reading, a woman wakes up every morning and asks herself, what will I do to make myself happy today? I decide to stop reading the book. I've been reading a bit with my friend Kelsey, and we both have these short poems that get the best reactions. We're like, I guess, I don't know, maybe they just read best, or we should only be writing really short poems. I'm gonna read 3, I think. I don't know. Some of them are new. One of them is very new. A couple of them are new-ish, but not in this collection, uncollected. This book, both my books, which are pre-kids. I now have some of you saw my baby is here. My aunt is with her outside. I have an 8-month-old. I have 3 young children. And I like to preface these poems by saying that you will laugh, but I do mean it, that I love my children and I love being a mother. And that's why I like to preface. Postpartum depression. I'm having a girl, I have her. She has it in for me. I don't have it in me. The family has 3 people, now 2.5. What do I have? I haven't any time to myself. I haven't my anymore. I have an MFA. I have some French. I have a headache and a terrible night ahead. It's not quite what I had in mind. Do I have a mind? Would you mind putting that aside for just 1 minute? Listen, I have it bad. I have no one to talk to. You might think I had it coming. After all, I had a baby. She had me at first cry. She has me by the breast, the finger, the eye. I've had a time of it. I've been had. I have had. I have been, or having had, I have hardly been. Now I have everything. Have a nice day. And this is called Craving, and I use quotation marks in it around words that are unquoted. So I'll just do this, and you'll hear it in my voice as well. Craving. In the aquarium, the fish dart, their movements jerky, as if afraid I will scoop them out of the water and into my mouth, or as if they are tiny machines programmed to dart so their scales catch the light just so. When pregnant for the first time with a daughter, I began to eat fish for the first time in 12 years. I ate it for her, felt no remorse, seeing nothing in their glassy eyes that resembled me. Feeding myself, I was feeding the baby. For the first time, I fed myself what I actually wanted, yet still called myself vegetarian. The plants inside the aquarium conveniently resemble Rapunzel, but I do not pine for them. I pine for the baby and go home to be eaten. And this is deciding. I'll read a different. I'm gonna read. This is called Rerun, and yeah, I won't say anything else about it. Once again, some young gun has shot multiple rounds of ammunition into someone else's son. We're stunned, undone, overcome, just plain glum, then, finally, numb. Is this the right emoticon? Isn't there supposed to be a note about plums? God, what scum with a submachine. Beat the drum, lay down some breadcrumbs. This was all a function of unresolved tension. Come, I know that's done, but swim a mile, crack a smile. His name was John. In his youth, he was a paragon, a son, a grandson born in century 21, a beloved baby turned unbeloved neocon, who slipped on 2 pairs of latex gloves before he picked up the whereupon they. Will his body be burned, his ashes returned in an urn? Will someone's mum play a nocturne? My tongue weighs 10 tons. This country's a slum with Amazon. I know. I'll run a marathon or go to the salon, lay on the divan and eat a saran-wrapped sticky bun. It wasn't even a black swan. Did he think he'd enter some pantheon? I yearned to tell him that with each one, the scrum falls more in love with the victim. His name will never be sung. In the untelevised denouement, a surprising rapprochement, the survivors prefer a very Christian apology. They decide he was ill when he went in for the no one wonders how he got probably he thought he'd pull a fast one then, well, now the mothers are good chums. The sun shines with the elan of a detonated bomb. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right. We are liking to hear next from Lily Brown, who's the author of Blade Work, winner of the 2024 New Measure Poetry Prize from Parlor Press, and Rust or Go Missing from Cleveland State University Poetry Center, as well as several chapbooks, including The Haptic Cold from Duckling Presse. Her poems have appeared in New American Letters and Commentary, A Public Space, Boston Review, Colorado Review, Denver Quarterly, Gulf Coast, Lana Turner, Mississippi Review, and Oversound, among others. She lives in Maine with her family and works as a writing teacher. The poems in Blade Work turn, quote, a valve that lets another consciousness arrive. Here we're offered a mutual instantiation of self and surroundings that affects a rich simultaneity and doesn't always fully delineate between, quote, the violence of artifact and the living tree. We see the freckle of Venus, for instance, dimmed on the face of the sky, subsumed by a brighter light. We see the aspects of our world we once thought familiar and viewed with an often uncanny life, animated in endlessly surprising ways. We hear the sonics of the actual confounded by dream logics as, quote, a crow's publicity reinstates the real. Or upended by unexpected syntax by such turns of phrase as, these are all quotes, dogs coursing the bush, or sky all lisping stars, or I away to it, eyes where we are. And through Brown's eye, Emma Winsor Wood tells us, quote, the world becomes itself again, vivid, radiant, unknowable. Please welcome Lily Brown.
Thank you so much for having me. I was here like many years ago and I was trying to remember when, but I think it was 08 or 09 or a long while ago. I was thinking that I was going to say, if any of you have ever read Personism, the Manifesto by Frank O'Hara, he says at the beginning, like, everything's in the poems, which matches with what you were saying about simultaneity, because that might be helpful to know, just that my poems are kind of, it's like, what am I reading? What am I seeing? What am I looking at? What am I hearing? What memory am I having? And it's all kind of happening simultaneously. So I'll just say that by way of beginning. I'm going to start with a poem called Venus Transit. I used to teach high school full-time, high school English, and it was very busy, and so I only really wrote in the summer. And sometimes when I was lucky, I would go do a residency if I was lucky to get into one. So several of the poems were written at the Vermont Studio Center in Johnson, Vermont, and I was there when the Venus Transit happened, and everybody was looking at it through pieces of wooden glass that they had sort of on the campus there, and so that's kind of the origin story of this poem. Venus Transit. I heard the voice of reason swerve boneward as it mouthed the high hills of art. I know both sides, the violence of artifact and the living tree, airy branches full of weeds. Once a sitting thing in a thing that stuck me back, I walked straight out in heavy rain, trying not to aim. His lungs gum thick, each word towed out, with a chain pulled simultaneously back. I make another motion, send a jagged gift. Days are dams, each week posts a sign above the water. This week, goodbye. Last week, the possible. I close the dam of the possible, open the dam of goodbye. Its aperture is a mouth pasted mostly shut. Through welding glass, see astral green. I look for freckled Venus. It's gone, or on the blurred brink of sun. These days, dream is a terror unromantic to disclose. Take up its visions like fruit in arms. Forget them in the cold barrel of the sun. next one I'm going to read is it's about the Salton Sea. Have any of you ever been to the Salton Sea or heard of it? It's like a dried up inland sea somewhere sort of near Palm Springs in California, and it's very smelly because as it's dried up, the fish that are in it have died, and like the shores are kind of covered in fish bones. It's sort of a sad it's a sad scene, and many scientists have been trying to figure out what exactly to do with it. Did they try to revitalize it? Did they just let it kind of go the way it's going? So anyway, I have a short poem about the Salton Sea. Seagrass spears dim wind, green velocities serrated fin, about the sated sea, about the bone glass beach. We want a fish's soft bones of belief, bright white smells, eye open eyes wide to believe anything is glass, white striped, black, the chemical breeze. Here's a phantasm in tropic paint, an egret wheeling into God's metal wing. Okay, I'm gonna read a 5-part poem. This is maybe the longest, definitely the longest poem in the book, probably the longest poem I've written. And this one I wrote in Wyoming when I was doing a residency there. So there's definitely a lot of landscape of sort of like ranch land, rolling hills, a lot of wildlife that I saw there. A little bit about the 2016 presidential election, which you might recognize. And yeah, I'll just read it. It's called Out Here. We drive in one thin silver take through blue heat in a squat silver tank. I don't know what casts shadows. The lumps of the range too far ahead, a cloud's torn edge. When I paint the mountains dark or clear blue, it looks deliberate, like I meant to drape light more or less heavily over the high terrain. Like I'm managing a small ocean, I think, while filling the ice cube tray, or with my head in your armpit, during dinner cleanup, or when I'm alone but can smell you. This morning I wake, sit on the deck, close my eyes. Wild turkeys are claps of thunder over a nearby tree thick with bird sound. When I open my eyes, a family unfurls, 5 or 6 necks bud out of high grass and run, each with one eye on me, away. Then I walk in the heat and wind, squat to listen to my sister's hard day, turn left up the hill, layers of sagebrush front the hills, gathering far blue mountains and the loops of my shoelaces around them. There's one telephone pole out here, attached to nothing. I send a letter, a postcard, plant them in the mailbox, turn the red flag up. Every night my dreams are nightmares or reveries, losses or gifts. Riding a turquoise cruiser, I hear a thump and make out 2 forearms and half a face against a narrow window. As I pass, a sandhill crane expels a chain from its throat, sounds the metallic insult of my presence. I look up presence in the thesaurus and read, the presence of the train was indicated electrically. It may as well say there was obvious chemistry between the train and the track, or the bicycle ran under blood power. I push past a small snake, dead or so deeply lost in sun it looks gone. Outside the window, a tree's branches form a circle, a line of smaller trees below, birds raining through the aperture. A truck heaves by, its engine ringing like a beaten bell. I wake with my left thumb in my left ear in a bright sore spot where memory should be. No matter. Day is a dream, I read through the flat streets of the page outside your house, and you keep moving through the novel's rooms. At dinner, I hear a man tell a woman the presidential frontrunner is a megalomaniac because how many times does her husband have to cheat on her? You asked if people pair with opposites because it works. All I know is that you open places others shut. Pushed up against the tunicate-encrusted dock, I watch you swim 2 ropes from a knot. Okay, I'm gonna read a couple more from here, and then I might even branch out and read a couple new ones, which is kind of exciting. I have a small child who was born like right before the pandemic, and so I feel like I just haven't written a lot in the past several years, but I'm in a writing group now, so I actually have some time to write, and so that's exciting. But I'll do this first. Okay, this one is called Certain Allied Experiments. Yeah, I wrote it in the mountains in North Carolina during a giant thunder and lightning storm. I think that's all I'll say. Okay, to be very young and beached on a couch. Describe this feeling as rubber, warm to the touch, lodged in the chest. In a cabin in the mountains, see bluish fog, or the rogue sky coming through cloud to dislodge stone habit. To stand by, stood up against surprise, a valve that lets another consciousness arrive. For a figurine slung from the ceiling, see a fat-bellied hen, see a flat fish, a glassed leaf, a blinking desert built like tonight out of lightning. I'm on a mountain, rocking in its side. I think I'll read the title poem and then a couple new ones. So this one, I was saying last night at a reading, it's like the most elusive poem I've ever written. There's kind of a random allusion to a magazine I think I was reading when I was writing it. King Lear, because I was teaching it to seniors, high school seniors, when I was writing this. And then a mishearing of a Doug Powell poem, D.A. Powell. So, and also I think I was in Iowa visiting my partner who was in school there when I wrote this, and I had gone with him. He is a fairly avid hunter, which was something that was very new to me. I'd never met anyone who hunted until I was with my partner. And so I went with him on a bird hunt just to kind of see what it was like. So there's a little bit of that imagery in here too. Very new, kind of new experience for me at that moment. Blade work. I went many years without reading the listings. I wanted to be liked by the poet in the dank restaurant who fastened his face to its shadows. There was an aura of mock wood, pebbles I lined to stay true to some cracked intuition. Somewhere in the cyber ether and alarum, the dirtiest place in your home has been revealed, the blare above a kitchen sink while I clean my teeth. Lear uses the royal we while addressing his daughters, who press their breasts to the floor, whose collarbones nicked stone. While I was out with the dog, a raccoon bent its head around the corner store's bright wall and stared. Last week I burst a green balloon with the Outback's black back wheel. Still earlier, I stood in a field of old harvest shards. Birds rose, then fell through their own shattered feathers for the sleek dog to retrieve. Clippets of summer lawns I misread in Doug's book, proceeding to dream of chlorophyll debutantes shucked from the earth's round edge, cut mercifully away from the semi-automatic sun. Okay, now I will read a few new ones. So I'm in this writing group, which feels like sort of a miracle to me that it exists, like that people meet every week in person for this group every Thursday night, and just share prompts and have time to write and share. So I feel very lucky that I get to do that. Sometimes I don't go every week, but when I can. So I have a couple I'm going to read. One of them was based on a prompt where people had to write on slips of paper the titles of B movies. And so I got one called Birdemic. Is it? Does anyone know how it's pronounced? Is it Birdemic, like pandemic?
Yeah.
That's what I figured. Okay. So I've never seen it, but I wrote a poem based on what I thought it might, like sort of the atmosphere or aura I felt it might have. So, self-portrait as birdemic. The birds are infected, perched as if weighted, like heavy spades pointed down. They encircle this house in the close-stitched town. The birds are nearly braided, hunched up together, a wall of poison feathers in infested weather. Blessed are the ebullient, bubbling and effervescent, who might see the opposite of this visionary birdemic. I do think I should see the movie now so I can see what it's actually like. I don't know anything. And then a prompt the last time I was there was, it was writing a poem in the style or with the title, The Problem of Describing, which I think is, I think Robert Haas has written a bunch of poems with those titles. And so I got The Problem of Describing the Oboe. And I have a friend who plays oboe, so it was convenient when I picked oboe out of the hat we were picking out of. So I wrote a poem about watching him play the oboe. The Problem of Describing the Oboe. The theater is draped in red. The orchestra bangs hard at moments of big drama. Out of the subsequent quiet comes Alan's oboe, for which I don't have words. Ethereal, earthen, every possible word begins with E. Oboe ends in E. The notes are light, but not weightless. What I will remember with more precision is Alan's face, which I also can't describe, at least not poetically, but which I see clearly across the velvet expanse and can't forget. I think I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay. Closing things out this afternoon, Kurt Olsson, a former Peace Corps volunteer who taught English at a small university in the Fergana Valley in the late 1990s. 2 years ago, Olsson moved from Maryland to Wisconsin so he could live near Lake Michigan and earn his doctorate in English at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Olsson's most recent poetry collection, the Unnumbered Anniversaries, was just published by Fernwood Press. He's published 2 previous collections, Burning Down Disneyland and What Kills Us, winner of the Gerald Cable Book Award, the Towson University Prize for Literature, given annually to the best book published by a Maryland writer, and Peace Corps Writer's Best Poetry Book of 2008. Kurt lives on the top floor of a duplex with his youngest daughter, 4 cats, and an American Pit Bull Terrier named Coco. He volunteers with the Wisconsin Humane Society, facilitates classes for the National Alliance on Mental Health, and tutors as part of Common Ground's Future Scholars Program. True to the name, the Unnumbered Anniversaries, we find therein so many seemingly small, undersung moments, still formative, well worth remembering, and here recalled or there in the book. In such unassuming and lucid lyricism, Olsson finds a place where, quote, I could be alive and never own a word. We have Christ's name muttered at a stubbed toe, for instance, becoming a meditation at a litany of divine dailiness, or life likened to a plane flight, keys missing in the end as we return to the terminal we departed from. There's an expansiveness of thought, a capacious universe extending outward from singularities of daily minutiae. And in this way, Olsson brings us sometimes to, quote, the impossible, the unimaginable, and frequently to the, quote, unpredicted and unpredictable, the secretly wished for. It's a pleasure to welcome Kurt Olsson.
Give me a second here. I almost died, that's why I you go to the doctor, you tell the doctor your symptoms, and the doctor says, oh, your chest is fine, there's nothing in your lungs, everything's cool, but just wait 3 weeks and get back to me. And then I have a coughing fit here. So I'm really sorry that I had to hide back there. I just didn't want to be doing all kinds of bad things. I'm going to start off with, well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming here this afternoon. I know on a Saturday afternoon there are lots of wonderful things you could be doing. So taking some time to spend with the word, with the human word, I think is really something to be lauded and appreciated. Thank you to Mike for his always wonderful introductions. Thank you to Woodland Pattern, which is a jewel here in the Midwest. It's one of the reasons why I'm here. You did hear that I volunteer for a bunch of organizations. My parents told me, let your actions speak louder. Your actions speak louder than words. So it's not really about me, it's about those organizations. NAMI is a wonderful organization helping those dealing with mental illness. The Humane Society, Wisconsin Humane Society, probably all of you have been touched in some way with the Wisconsin Humane Society. And there's this program called Forward Scholars, and Forward Scholars has only been around for 4 years. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. I know one person has. But it gives you this opportunity to go and tutor at a school in the Milwaukee area, and you're helping someone in first or second grade become a better reader or to read at all. And it's really exciting, and what I find mind-blowing about it, I go in for 2 hours every week, 2 days a week, and I'm tutoring the same girl the whole year. So, I've tutored before, and it's been sort of slapdash, and you see a person, you might not see them ever again. But this, I'm going to get to spend a whole year with her. I don't know if she finds that exciting, but I'm not. I'm going to start off because I have to look at this book and remember it. Oh, there we go. Thank you for coming. I'm going to start with about a reading. I've written a number of poems about readings. To Loss. A young man, little more than a boy, sobs in back of the room where tonight's poet reads Edna St. Vincent Millay, a writer, he scolds, too much neglected today. I've read a lot of poetry, even a little Millay, but never been moved to tears by it, least of all in public, at a reading. So I find myself paying less heed to the poem than to the boy, trying to guess what must be galling him so. What is it I missed that's missing? What small part is missing in me? I'm not alone in these thoughts, I think, not the only one who yearns to be transported to a nook in a coffee shop or home in front of the TV, anywhere but here now. Who saves us? A formalist in back who whispers in pure spondees, shut the fuck up. Doesn't do the whole trick. Young man sobs, dib only a bit, but it does serve to pivot the rest of us back to the poet at the front of the room, who puts down his Millay, ready to begin the first of his own many small songs to loss. One of my writing professors here, she had the good sense of retiring in my first year. She didn't want to work with me anymore. This poem is called Wildflowers. It took me a long time to learn how to write poetry because I didn't write it because I took this class. The first writing class told us not what we should, but we shouldn't, at least not until we outlived our excesses. What was prescribed? Dreams, grandparents, ideas, our first beer, pets dead or otherwise. In other words, most of what most of us knew well and well enough to love, leaving us to apprentice on the other stuff, the sky at night, the smaller losses, the backwoods where grow the many wildflowers of North America, whose names to this day I still don't know. All the time in the world. Though born with the fear of falling, we humans must be taught patience. This is why God invented fly fishing and macrame. When she babysat us, she worked a pattern of Neil Armstrong planting Old Glory on the moon. Neither my sister nor I ever planted anything anywhere. Why, if you use a mallet to tenderize meat, did we smack 2x4s to make our hands tough? Mowing grass is pointless, yet requires patience too. You wait for it and hope for rain, but not too much, and then up and down and up you go, over the same sorry slab of ground. John Cage said prehistoric people, when they were afraid of something, drew pictures to get over the fear. During a Little League game, somebody's brother raced to third base, got hit by lightning, died. Only while you're a child do you look up and try to count the stars. Bless you. Bless you again. I heard a lot about animals here, so this is an elegy from my grandmother. It's called The Bird Watcher. She loved birds, their secret logic. She went for long walks alone along dusty fire roads, binoculars double-strapped about her neck. She liked believing in what might be. After dinner, she'd sweep us all out of the kitchen with her skirts, and she'd do the dishes. It wasn't a chore for her, the silence. She had these washed-out blue eyes like pebbles in a stream bed after a sun shower. Sometimes she let me go with her. Didn't talk much, put a finger to her lips, point up, correct more often than not. Summers, every day after the breakfast dishes, she rowed me one side of the lake, down the other. They're there, she promised, but I never caught much beyond a meager bluegill. Story goes, before my time, she posed against the doorframe to their bedroom in fishnets, a fedora cocked over an eye a la Garbo, a stogie in her mouth. God, she knew how to laugh. She had to because she was married to a minister. Oh my God. So this is where maybe the next poem came from. I never went to church, so I don't know why I have all these poems about Jesus in them. Livelihoods. Some carry a piece of the cross with them, the true cross, the cross he died on, the cross a man fashioned, the cross measured and sawed, chiseled and fitted, the man understanding the provenance of wood, how to work it, what a span of wood can and cannot bear, picturing what he was making, but not for whom, just as another might not know for whom a hammer or a lamb shank was intended. A man who viewed his making as a way to earn a livelihood, the means for keeping alive, of putting food on the table. If shavings fell from his brow, if he pulled a splinter from a calloused thumb and it bled a little, the sawdust and blood mixing with what was on his plate didn't alter the taste of what he ate, didn't make him think of what he had or had not done that day. Here's a poem I wrote, sadly, a couple of years ago, and now I wish it had a different ending. My presidents. John F. Kennedy left me parched and sweat-stoked on the tarmac somewhere on the Central Asian steppe, conjugating the verb to want. LBJ taught me how to never give up, giving up. Richard M. Nixon welched on refereeing the 7th grade fistfight between me and Tony O'Hare. Gerald R. Ford made me skip sleep for Chevy Chase in Saturday Night Live. Jimmy Carter paid for his mom not allotting him a middle initial he liked. I voted John Anderson, not Ronald Reagan. Carter, not Ronald Reagan. Mondale, not, you get my drift. George H.W. Bush didn't do a lot I want to remember. Bill Clinton sent me a letter impersonating Bill Clinton, thanking me for my service. George W. Bush claimed it was over before it was over. Barack Obama paid for my daughter's year of hospital. Donald Trump explains my left-handedness and on knees with metaverses. Joe Biden, I can't in my heart blame for much except being the last ones standing without a stool to sit on. I'm not going to tell you how many poems are left. Sometimes I do tell people because I can just hear them counting in their head. Okay, 4 more to go. 4 more to go. This is the first poem. The best of a bad year. Snowed only once, a lot, too much, to shovel out to where I kept the kids' toboggan. So I went down to the basement and found a moving box big enough and threw it in the trunk of the dented wreck I'd gotten in the settlement. And once the plow made it to my street, I drove to the park where kids, not mine, chase balls in summer. And the 3 of us crunched up to the top of a hill, the hard pack, slick now, so bright it hurt, and the girls took turns in the box. They did that until it fell apart, and then I drove them back to their mothers. I have the pictures somewhere. So that was the end of a relationship. This is the beginning of a relationship. Repair. There's a word in Russian in here. Repair. Snow. The silence within silences. A flickering street lamp. Her gloved hand. Ramont, scrawled in Cyrillic on an abandoned shack. The goodnight kiss. Then the small, fused heap of her gone. And me, racing to my flat. So fast I cannot drown. There's another elegy. It's called Namesake. He was a punter, not the British kind, though he did like that, given his thing for all things English. He spent semesters there trying to outgrow his love, his first for Chaucer. He taught me how to hold the ball at an angle, nose down and away from one's kicking leg. It worked, kind of, even if I punted with my left, the wrong foot. He didn't just punt, he ran them back too. Holds his alma mater's record for longest run back of all time, 9:26:59 against Lakeland. Every few years, at moments when I'm on standby or thinking back, I look it up and make sure. After he had his kids, it wasn't the same, even if they were girls. They had his hair, ginger, his faraway eyes. My folks say I wasn't named after him. They just liked the name. Later, he never stopped eating the wrong stuff or took good care. Suffered the heart attack killed him during his doctor-mandated morning walk. He ran 100 yards that day, and no one touched him. This poem's called To Goya, and it's not the food manufacturer. It's the other Goya. Just so we're clear, because I realized when I went to the title, I was like, yes, I could have written a poem about beans. Maybe it would have been better. To Goya. If art is the 2 sons of the famous lithographer who stole one of their father's disaster of war prints and found a buyer in Dubuque, Iowa, while he was away on holiday, whose first names were Leonardo and no shit, Michelangelo, before the mutant turtles of the same names, one of whom, the fatter, hid behind the green shades of prescription glasses, while the other theatrically goosed his French accessory girlfriend, who walked with their guts puffed out like butchers, proud of the smears on their aprons, who asked for toothpicks after dinner, as if they couldn't just suck their yellow teeth to unwedge the pasta we sloshed on their plates and sold all you can eat, who sat for hours nursing 40-cent bottomless cups of coffee and laughing, Leonardo and Michelangelo with their factory fresh Audis and reputed huge cocks. If art is this, little wonder I'm still pissed many years later. I never tossed the dregs of their coffee back in their smiling faces, never shadowed them out to the parking lot to plop, dime by dime, their lousy tips onto the handmade and brilliantly buffed Italian loafers your genius afforded them. I went to the bar for a few years. This is another bar poem. The Regular. He's Bill, that's all. No one's sweet Will. Certainly not Billy. If anybody calls him William, his mother, or maybe his accountant, if he has either. He drinks whatever's on tap, nothing else, never eats anything, not even the popcorn, and it's free. If he talks, he smiles, embarrassed or a mite proud, he's got an angle his own to share. When he gives up his bar stool at last call, he stands stock still a few seconds, maybe more, shuts both eyes, as if he needs the world to settle inside him, or must count to make sure his four limbs are his and still with him. Then he steps out into the same night that waits for us all. How am I doing? Should I finish up? Oh. I'll read two more. How to Become a Clown, after the title of a children's book. To begin, a clown simply is. He must learn to mind the sorrow of trees, study the big top of desire, expect no friend but his own shadow. A clown paints both eyes into bright buttons of pain, moistens his lips with lost legal battles and whiskey bottles, wears his orange Julius hair long because he misses his manic monkey tail. A clown hums America the Beautiful, sings The Body General Electric. A clown asks, you must be happy, you just happy to see me, or is that a 16-wheeler I feel on your pants? To clown is to come one step closer to Christ. Salvation is where one finds it. Another philosophical question, does one peel or unpeel a banana? A clown talks national security, our American empire of ghosts. He thinks, I can do this in my sleep. A clown must learn to smoke cigars in a bathtub, hobnob with lions and mice, play duets with wind-up novelty teeth. Remember, a clown is the mortician of the soul. To applause, a clown opines on a talk show, you can't change who you are, but you can change who you become. A clown prays, let no one show me the door, I know the way. Yes, I was a Peace Corps volunteer 5 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union in a small Central Asian republic, and I always tell people that if you want to know how quickly a country can go right down the drain, where there's no money, that was an example of it. They literally, it's one of my favorite stories, is they would steal the manhole covers. And there were no lights, because they didn't have street lights on anymore. So people would just walk and then descend 15 feet into a manhole and break limbs and stuff like that. Not the locals. The locals knew where the manholes. It was the American Peace Corps volunteers who did the dive and then got medevaced. This is called This poem's called The 70th Anniversary of the Revolution Street. There was no 75th anniversary of the Revolution Street. That was the last time they had the 70th anniversary or any anniversary. This man, half Russian, he dropped by my flat unannounced and without asking, rise on tiptoe and reach for the top of my wardrobe, wide as a fat man's coffin, the sole piece of furniture the previous tenants abandoned when after the collapse of the Soviet Union, they fled north beyond the steppe. Down he'd take one of the handful of books I wrapped in perma-press shirts and lugged halfway across the world, set it on his dusty knees like a spoiled orphan. Books, we agreed, had big souls. Those left now, mostly elementary primers for barter on fleece carpets, paper cheap, and covers radiating less harm than Winnie the Pooh or Hello Kitty. I didn't need him to tell me what had been lost. Most of the books burned, not out of anger or hate or disbelief or politics. Engineers like him had to sell new potatoes and Coca-Cola in the bazaar, and it got cold mornings, with or without the statue of Lenin in the town square. Eventually, he'd open the book. Where didn't matter, he didn't read English, and he'd dip his nose in, breathing long and deep the broken promises of paper and ink. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kurt. Thank you, Lily, Emma, all of you for being here and tuning in out there. And I invite you to stick around, enjoy the good company. We have refreshments. Of course, we have books, so Unnumbered Anniversaries, Play Work, and Preferred Eternal Landscape, among many others. But hey, thanks. Have a